Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Samech Daled Amud Aleph 64a of Maseches Kiddushin. We're starting with the Mishnah at the top of the page, 2 lines down. The Mishnah says, Kiddashti es biti. A man says, I was Mekadesh, my daughter, I accepted Kiddushin on behalf of my daughter. And he's talking about where he did so when she was a child. Actually, that's the only time that he could accept Kiddushin for her, while she's still a Ketana, before she reaches adulthood. Or, so he says that he accepted Kiddushin and she's currently married. Or he says, Kiddashtiya v'geirashtiya. He says, I accepted Kiddushin and I accepted a get, and she's now divorced. But if she's divorced, she's forbidden to marry a Kohen now. And again, he says he did this Kishahi Katana when she was a child. V'arehi Katana, and she's still currently a child. So then Ne'eman, then he is believed. But Kiddashtiya v'geirashtiya kishikatana. But if he makes the same claim, I accepted Kiddushin for her, and I accepted a divorce for her when she was a child, and therefore he was claiming she's forbidden to marry a Kohen. V'arehi gadol, but currently, in this case, she's already an adult. So then Eino Ne'eman, then he's not believed. So if she's currently a child, he is believed to make that claim. But if she's now an adult when he's making the claim, and he's claiming that he did it when she was a child, so he's not believed. Another case, Nishbis Upidisia. If he says that she got captured by captors, and I redeemed her. She was taken hostage and I redeemed her. So then, and the consequence of that is that we assume, we at least have a suffix, we have a doubt that maybe the captors took advantage of her and had relations with her, and that she's now considered a zona and forbidden to marry a Kohen. So then, and so the father's making this claim. In that case, bein she katana, bein she gadola, eino ne'eman. Whether she's currently a child or whether she's already an adult, and he's claiming it happened when she was a child, either way, he's not believed. So in this case, even when she's still a child, he's not believed. So in the Mishnah has 3 cases. The first 2 are the same claim. Either he accepted Kiddushin for her, or he accepted Kiddushin and a get for her. So if she's still a child now, he's believed. If she's already an adult, then he's not believed. If he's claiming that she got captured and he redeemed her, then he's never believed whether she's still a child or not. So the Gemara asks, what's the difference here? Ma'ishna, says the Gemara, Ma'ishna Reisha, Ma'ishna Seifa. What's the difference between the Reisha, the first case, where he is believed when she's still a child, and what's the difference in the Seifa, in the second case, when she's already an adult, or in the third case, where she got captured? There, he's not believed. So the Gemara answers, because Reisha biyade, Seifa la biyade. The difference is that in the first case, it's in his hands to do the same thing. And in the Seifa, in the second and third case, it's not in his hands. In other words, if he's just out if he's looking for whatever reason, to make his daughter forbidden to marry a Kohen, so he could lie about it, right? Which is what we're concerned about. But if she's still a child, he doesn't need to lie. He could go and do it. He can marry her off to someone and then accept a get from that guy. And that would forbid her to a Kohen. So since it's in his hands to do it still currently, so we believe his claim that he did it. However, in the Seifa, let's start with the middle case, I guess. In the middle case, she's now an adult. He can't accept Kiddushin on her behalf once she's an adult. So then, it's not in his power to do this. So there, we won't believe him when he says that he did it, because we don't have this logic, this migu type of logic, where we could say, well, if he really wanted to do it, he could just do it now. But that's not the case, because she's an adult, he can't do it now. So there, we won't believe him to make a claim that forbids her to a Kohen if he makes the claim, I marry her off and accepting a get for her. And similarly, in the last case where he's claiming that she got captured and redeemed, well, that's not in his power. That's, that involves captors, and so that's not in his power to do. So therefore, he's not believed to make that claim. The Gemara asks, Velo, is it really not in his power to accomplish what that would accomplish? In other words, So fine, he can't get her captured, but if he was just looking to forbid her to a Kohen, there's another way that he could do that. He doesn't need to claim that she got captured and that he redeemed her if he's looking to forbid her to a Kohen. He has another way to do that. He can marry her off to a Chalal, and that would forbid her to marry a Kohen in the future if her husband died. Meaning, a Chalal is a disqualified Kohen. An example would be if he's the product of a Kohen's forbidden relationship, like a Kohen Gadol marries an Almana, a widow. So a Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry a widow. If he does, their child is a Chalal. He's a disqualified Kohen. Now, if that Chalal were to marry this man's daughter, this question assumes that would make her Pasal Lakuna, that would make her forbidden to marry a Kohen. Now, she's married to someone, so she can't marry anyone right now. And if he would divorce her, she would be a divorcee, which is also married to a Kohen, which is also forbidden to a Kohen. The case would be where he died. An Almana, a widow, is permitted to a regular Kohen. She's only forbidden to a Kohen Gadol. So, if let's say this Chalal died, then she would be the widow of a Chalal, and the question assumes that she would actually be forbidden to marry a Kohen now. So therefore, we're saying it is in his hands to make her forbidden to a Kohen. He could marry her off to a Chalal. So the Gemara says, "Hello, Kasha." That's not our question. Rebbe Dostai ben Yehuda, because this Mishnah could be going like Rebbe Dostai, the son of Yehuda. The Amar says, "B'nos Yisrael mikvah tara l'chalalin," that actually marrying her off to a Chalal would not forbid her to a Kohen, because he holds that Jewish girls are like a mikvah for Chalalin, for these disqualified Kohanim, meaning if this Chalal would marry a Chalala, if she was the daughter of an illicit relationship of a Kohen, so then their child would be a Chalal or Chalala, male or female. But if the Chalal marries a kosher Jewish girl, regular, not a Chalala, so Rabbi Dostai says their child is not a Chalal. She's like a mikvatar. She purifies it. The child is not of a disqualified status. And so too, she herself is not of a disqualified status, and she would still be allowed to marry a Kohen if her husband were to die. So therefore, even according to Rabbi Dostai, even if the father here would marry her to a Chalal, that would not disqualify her from marrying a Kohen. So it's not in his hands. So ask the Gemara, mamzer. It's in his hands to marry her off to a mamzer. And if she would be married to a mamzer, and then the mamzer would die, she would be the widow of a mamzer, and she would be for such a person, if a Jewish girl who marries a mamzer, becomes forbidden to marry a Kohen. So it is in his hands to marry her off to a mamzer, and to forbid her to a Kohen. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva. No, this Mishnah is going like Rabbi Akiva. The Amar who holds, Ein Kiddushin Tovsim b'chai b'lavin. Rabbi Akiva holds that Kiddushin doesn't take effect even for regular negative prohibitions. In other words, everybody agrees that if we're dealing with a forbidden relationship that would lead to a chiyuv kares, that the punishment is kares, is spiritual excision, so everybody agrees in those cases a marriage wouldn't even take effect between the two people. If it's a relationship that leads to kares, Kiddushin doesn't take effect. That's by kares. What about a regular lav, a regular prohibited marriage that doesn't lead to kares? So Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion that even those Kiddushin doesn't take effect. Now if Kiddushin doesn't take effect, then she can't marry a mamzer. It's impossible for a regular girl to marry a mamzer according to Rabbi Akiva. They could try, but Kiddushin wouldn't take effect. If Kiddushin doesn't take effect, then she's not going to be forbidden to a Kohen as a result of her marriage, because there is no marriage there. So our Mishnah could be going like Rabbi Akiva. It's not in the father's hands to marry her to a mamzer, because she can't marry a mamzer. And so he doesn't have the ability to forbid her to a Kohen. So I should just mention one question, which is outstanding here, which Rashi addresses. We're trying to come up with cases that forbid her to a Kohen. Don't we have an easier case? The case that the Mishnah actually had. If you would marry her, if you would marry her to a regular guy and then accept a get from that guy, she would be a divorcee and she would be forbidden to marry a Kohen. So why don't we just, so he is in his hands to forbid her to marry a Kohen? So the answer is that that's true, but nishbis, the claim that we're dealing with in the Mishnah, which we're trying to address if he has the ability to create such a similar scenario, and if he should be believed, is the case where he's claiming that she was captured and redeemed. There's an additional factor there, which is that if she was the daughter of a Kohen, so she would actually become forbidden to eat truma, because we would consider her perhaps a zona, a possible zona, and the daughter of a Kohen who's a zona is forbidden to eat truma. So therefore, there's an additional. We need to come up with a scenario where the father could marry his daughter off. Let's say she was a Bas Kohen, daughter of a Kohen, and not only forbid her from marrying another Kohen, but also disqualify her from eating truma from her own family. So that would be the case in these cases that we're suggesting. If she married a chalal can't eat truma. If she's a chalala, if she married a mamzer, if such a thing could take effect. So the Gemara's answer, though, for now is that it wouldn't take effect, and therefore it's not, the father can't marry her to a mamzer, because Kiddushin just won't take effect. Ask the Gemara, he can marry her off if she's an almana, in the case where she's an almana, where she's a widow. So, because we want this to be consistent in all cases, that that he couldn't make such the Mishnah's vague, or doesn't say that we're talking about a specific type of girl. It could be any girl. So even an almana, even a widowed girl, a girl who was once married. So if she's an almana, if she's a widow, and a ketara, a child widow, so he can marry her to a Kohen Gadol. And even Rabbi Akiva, who holds that Kiddushin doesn't take effect by Chayvei Lavin, by negative prohibitions, this is an exception. Rabbi Simai, as the Gemara says, like the opinion of Rabbi Simai, the Tanya, like we learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Simai Omer, Rabbi Simai says, Mingakol Oser Rabbi Akiva Mamzer. Rabbi Akiva would consider the product of any forbidden relationship to be a mamzer, chutz me'almana lekohen gadol, except for an almana, a widow who marries a kohen gadol. Sharei amra Torah, because the Torah says lo yikach, it says he should not take her as a wife, v'lo yichalel, and he should not disqualify his offspring. Chilulim oseving osem mamzerim, which implies that he would make them into chalalim, disqualify kohanim, but not into mamzerim. So, essentially what the Gemara is teaching us now is that actually Rabbi Akiva, his opinion goes a little further. Not only does Kiddushin not take effect on Chayvei Lavin, on all negative prohibitions, prohibited relationships, not just the kares ones, all of them, but also the product of any of those relationships would be a mamzer. except for one, which is a widow who marries a Kohen Gadol. The product is a chalal, not a mamzer, and by extension, somewhat, that means that the Kiddushin actually does take effect. So there's one case where Rabbi Akiva would agree that there's a forbidden relationship that Kiddushin would take effect, and that is a widow who marries a Kohen Gadol. So there is a case where a father has the ability to disqualify his daughter from marrying a Kohen, and that is if he marries her off, if she's a widow, and he marries her to a Kohen Gadol, then she would become disqualified from marrying another Kohen if her husband would die, if the Kohen Gadol would die, because this is a forbidden relationship. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yeshevov. This Mishnah is actually going in the opinion of Rabbi Yeshevov within Rabbi Akiva. The Amar, Rabbi Yeshevov says, Bo b'nitzavach al Akiva ben Yosef. We should go and yell at Rabbi Akiva. Shaya Omer, that he would say, Rabbi Akiva would say, Kol she'en lo bia b'Yisrael havad mamzer. Anyone who it's not a permitted relationship, so the child is a mamzer. Well, what do you mean anyone? I thought we have an exception, Almana Kohen Gadol. So we see that Rabbi Yeshevov holds there's no exceptions. A widow to a Kohen Gadol also is the same. It's not an exception, and Kiddushin doesn't take effect, and the product is a mamzer. Says the Gemara, Hanichol Rabbi Yeshevov ilataymed nafshei shapir. So if Rabbi Yeshevov was saying this sort of on his own, so then it's true. Then the Mishnah makes sense. There's no case where he can marry her to someone that he's forbidden to marry, and that she's forbidden to marry, and therefore it's not within the father's ability to disqualify her from kahuna and from truma. However, but if he's only coming to argue on Rabbi Simai, it is within the father's ability to disqualify her by marrying her to someone who is forbidden in a positive commandment to marry. Meaning, up till now the rule of Rabbi Akiva was that negative prohibitions are Kiddushin doesn't take effect. So, what about positive prohibitions? Like there's a positive prohibition not to marry an Ammoni. Right, that a Jewish girl can't marry someone from the nation of Ammon. So let's say, and if she does, it disqualifies her from kahuna, from marrying a Kohen subsequently. So how far was Rabbi Yeshevov's statement? Rabbi Yeshevov said, let's yell at Rabbi Akiva, who is saying that anyone who it's a forbidden relationship, the child is a mamzer. Well, one second. Did he really mean anyone? If he meant anyone, fine. Then there's no case where Kiddushin would take effect, and so there's no way for the father to marry her to someone that would disqualify her from kahuna. But if Rabbi Yeshevov didn't really mean anyone, if he was really just addressing Rabbi Simai had said that a Ramana Kohen Gadol, a widow to a Kohen Gadol is an exception, that Kiddushin takes effect there. And if Rabbi Yeshevov was just coming to address that and say, no, it doesn't take effect even there, but a positive commandment of a forbidden relationship, don't that prohibition to marry a to marry a Mitzri Ammoni. Ammoni is a negative commandment, but there's a prohibition to marry a Mitzri or an Adomi within the first 3 generations. That's a positive commandment not to do that. So in in that case, it's possible that Kiddushin would take effect, and therefore the father could marry her to one of those guys, and that would disqualify for her, and still disqualifies her from Kahuna and from Truma. And so it sounds like, according to that, it would be within his hands. Fine. So that's a question. Now the Gemara now just kind of rejects this whole thing. Amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says, B'tizbara. He says, hold on a second, does any of this make sense? Reisha mishum debiyadahu. Let's go back to our original question. Our original question was, how come in the beginning of the Mishnah the father is believed, and in the subsequent cases he's not? If she's still a child, the Mishnah said he's believed. If she's no longer a child, he's not believed. The Gemara asked, what's the difference? The Gemara said, because when she's a child, he could do it, it's in his hands right now to do the same thing. So we should believe him, it's kind of like Migu, we should believe him that he married her to someone and accepted a get, because he could just do that now. She's still a child, it's still in his hands to marry her to someone and accept a get from him. As opposed to once she's an adult. Or as opposed to getting her captured and forbidding her to eat truma and to marry a Kohen, etc. So, asked Rav Ashi, V'tizbra reisha mishum debiyadahu. You're telling me that in the first case, it's in his hands to marry her to someone and to accept a get? Need to biyado lekadsha. Maybe it's in his hands to accept Kiddushin, but biyado legarsha. Is it really in his hands to accept a get? Maybe the guy won't give her a get. That's who says the husband is going to give her a get. That's not in his hands. It's not up to the father. V'od, and furthermore, also, what if he doesn't find somebody to accept to marry her? What do we mean it's in his hands to marry her to someone and get her divorced? If nobody wants to marry her, can he force someone to marry her? So it's, even in the Reisha, it's not in his hands. So Elam Rav Ashi. So rather, Rav Ashi says, Reisha Rachmana Heimne Kravuna. You know why? He's believed in the first case? Because the Torah says he's believed. Amar Ravuna Amar Rav. B'nayim la'av sheneman leser espito min haTorah. Ravuna said in the name of Rav, how do we know that a father is believed to forbid his daughter by Torah law? He can say that she's currently married. He could say that she's married and then divorced. Because the pasuk says, "Shneimar espiti nasati li'isha zeh." He can say, I gave my daughter to this man. Now, when he says la'ish, if he says, I gave my daughter to a man, astra, he forbids her to everybody. Kohen, not Kohen, everybody. It's in his hands to make her forbidden to anyone. How's that? I mean, when he says specifically this man, he tira, so that actually can permit her to that person. But, assuming it's true. But the father has that power. So, that's a pasuk. He can say, I gave my daughter to this man. So, he could say to a man, le'ish, forbid her on everybody, and hazeh, and then he could allow her to this one man that he's claiming. But what we see is that himnei rachman alav, b'disur himnei rachman alav, when it comes to marriage, the father has the Torah gives him credibility, and he's believed, while she's still a child, because that's what the pasuk is talking about, where she's still a child. But when she's not a child, no, because the pasuk wasn't talking about that. And b'shvuye lo imne, and so too, with regards to her being taken hostage, the Torah never said that he's believed to make such a claim. So that's why, in the Reisha, in the first case, he's believed. but in the subsequent cases, he is not believed. Okay, another Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Misha Amar Bishas Misaso, if a man says at the time of his death, Yesh li banim, I have children, and therefore my wife doesn't have to go yibum, Naaman is believed. Yesh li achim, if he says I have brothers, let's say he died, that he doesn't have any children, but he says I have brothers, we don't know about these brothers, but he says he has brothers, which means that there's somebody to do yibum to, right? If he has no brothers, there's no yibum. But if he's saying I have brothers, and she's forbidden to marry somebody until she gets yibum or chalitza, eino Naaman, he's not believed to make that claim. Again, where we didn't know about them. We didn't know if he had children. We didn't know if he had brothers. So if he says I have children, he's believed, and then she avoids yibum. If he says I have brothers, in a situation where he has no children, he's not believed because that would he's not believed to require her to do yibum with one of these brothers. Says the Gemara Alma, what we see is Naaman lahatir being Naaman lesser. He's believed to permit her, but he's not believed to forbid her. Right? He's believed to say he has children, which permits her to marry whoever she wants. There's no yibum. He's not believed to forbid her. He's not believed to say that he has brothers. So Naaman mastis the look Rabbi Nassan. Let's suggest this Mishnah is not in accordance with Rabbi Nassan. Detanya, because we have a brisa. Bishas Kiddushin. So this is a bit of a different case. Here the case is that at the time of Kiddushin, he made a claim, Amar yesh lo banim. He says, I have children. He marries a woman. He says, I already have children from a previous marriage. Which would mean that she wouldn't have to do yibum. But b'shas misa, Amar ein lo banim. But then right before he died, he's like, actually, I don't have any children. Or, Bishas Kiddushin Amar Ein Lo Achim. And when they got married, he's like, I have no brothers. Don't worry, there's not going to be yibum. Bishas Misa Amar Yesh Lo Achim. And then at the time of death, he said, actually, I do have brothers. So Naaman Lahatir being Naaman Lesser, Divrei Rebbe. Rebbe, the first opinion here says he's believed to make claims to permit her. So the first claim where he claims, I have children or I have no brothers, which would permit her to marry, would mean no yibum. It would mean no yibum, so that he's believed. But he's not Naaman, he's not believed to forbid her. He's not believed with the second claim, actually, I have no children, or actually, I have brothers. That he's not believed, because that would ask her to marry whoever she wants. It would require her to do yibum or chalitza. That's the opinion of Rabbi. Rabbi Nassan says, Af Naaman lesser. No, he's also believed to forbid her. His second claim is believed. So, our Gemara is saying the Mishnah, which says that if he says, I have children, he's believed. But if he says, I have brothers, he's not believed. Sounds like that's not like Rabbi Nassan. Rabbi Nassan says he's even believed to say, he should even be believed even to say that I have brothers. Even though that forbids her, that requires her to do yibum, Rabbi Nassan holds he's believed to answer her. So Amar Rava says, no, there's a difference here. Shani Hasam, the case of the brisa is different. Kevan de b'shas misa kahadar be. Since at the time of death he's switching what he originally said, ema kushtakam, maybe that means he's telling the truth. In other words, in the case where he's correcting something he had claimed previously, says Rava, we'll believe him. Because he's trying to set the record straight. So there we believe him. But if he's just this is the first time he's saying anything about anything, right? And if, again, the case of the Brisa is where he made one claim at the time of marriage, then he's making an opposite claim at the time of death. So there we say, says Rava, he wants to set the record straight, he wants her to do the right thing, either yibum, not yibum, whatever it is, because otherwise it's on him for lying. So there we'll believe him if he's setting the record straight. But if he never said anything in the past, and now he's just coming along and saying, by the way, right before he dies, he says, by the way, I have brothers, you're going to have to do Yibum. So in that case, says Rava, he's not believed, because there we assume he doesn't have to set the record straight, just to let things be. Maybe he's just trying to make problems for her. Amrle Abaye, so Abaye said to him, doesn't make any sense. Vilav kol dekenu, isn't it a kol shekain, and all the more so? Hashto mahasam de kamar leila dibure amrat kushta kamar. In the case where he has to correct himself, he originally said something different. In the Bryce's case, and now he's switching it. We believe him, according to Rabbi Nassan. Masnisim de lo kamar leila dibure. The Mishnah where he doesn't have to correct something he said previously. When you say all the more so we should believe him with his current claim, it's not contradicting anything. So says Abaye, it doesn't make sense. So rather Abaye says, you could still make Rabbi Nassan consistent with our Mishnah with the following logic. Masnisin de lo muchsaklan ba'achi, lo muchsaklan bivani. The Mishnah's case is where there's no chazaka of anything. We don't have a chazaka that he actually has brothers. We don't have a chazaka, we don't have an established assumption that he has children. There we say, since there's no chazaka one way or another, there's no chazaka, there's no underlying assumption here that he has children or that he has brothers. So then, Amar Yesh li banim ne'eman. If he says, I have children, he's believed. Yesh li achim eino ne'eman. If he says, I have brothers, he's not believed. Why? Because lav kol kamine das la kol yalma. It's not, he doesn't have the credibility to make her forbidden to everybody. So, in the case where there's no established chazaka, we know nothing going in. So then we say, if he makes a claim that permits her, we'll believe him. If he says, I have children, we'll believe him. But if he says, I have brothers and no children, so then we won't believe him because that's going to forbid her to everyone. We don't give him that credibility. But Brisa is the muchsakon ba'achi v'o muchsakon b'vani. The Brisa's case is where there's an underlying assumption, there's a chazaka, the word on the street is that he has brothers, but that he doesn't have children, which means that there's going to be Yibum. And then what happened in the case of the Brisa, at the time of Kiddushin, he said the opposite. So this guy walking down the chuppah, everybody thinks he has brothers and no children. And then he claims at the time of Kiddushin, you should know the opposite. I have children and I don't have brothers, and you won't have to do Yibum. D'amrinan mali l'shaker. We say in that case, why should you lie? Why should you lie? L'miftera miyavam. If he's just trying to get her out of Yibum, matzi amar patarno lach begita. He could say, I'll give you a get before I die. I'll make sure that you get a get before I die, and you won't have to deal with Yibum. In other words, this guy's coming and he's claiming, I have children, I have no brothers. In other words, he's saying, you won't have to marry me, you won't have to do Yibum. Don't worry. So, why would he say that? Why would he make that such you can't make something like that up. If he wanted to, if his whole purpose was just to get her out of Yibum, so then he could get her out of Yibum by making sure to give her a get before he dies. He can make a conditional, there's ways to do it. So why is he doing it this way? It must be he's telling the truth. So that's at the time of Kiddushin. Mali l'shaker, we say, why would he lie? So Rebbe Savar Mali l'shaker ki edim dami. Rebbe says that's a very strong logic. It's the equivalent of witnesses. Ve'asu edim Akri Chazaka, and therefore they uproot the original Chazaka. Again, the original Chazaka we're suggesting Abaye is saying is that he will have to do Yibum. He has brothers and no children. That's our assumption. And now he comes and claims the opposite. By claiming the opposite, it's so strong. You know, he doesn't have to lie if he's just trying to get her out of Yibum. He could just give her a get. So that logic of Mali L'Shakar is so strong that it can even uproot the Chazaka. And therefore, when he then turns around and tries to go back the other way and say, actually, I have no children, like the original Chazaka, and I have brothers, like the original Chazaka. So Rabbi says, the Chazaka's gone. The Mali L'Shakar logic uprooted the Chazaka, and so the current claim is not going to be accepted. Rabbi Nassan Savar, but Rabbi Nassan holds Mali L'Shakar ki Chazaka dami. Then no, this logic of why would you lie is not like Edom, it's only the equivalent of a Chazaka. It's not like witnesses. It's just like an established assumption. Lo asi Chazaka bakra Chazaka legamri. And so the new Chazaka is not going to uproot the old Chazaka. And therefore when he now makes a claim in line with the old Chazaka, that's what will win out. So Rabbi Nassan is saying, this is Abaye's explanation of Rabbi Nassan, that to explain Rabbi Nassan in the Braisa, the case is that there was an established assumption that she would have to do Yibum if he died. Meaning, at the time of marriage, everybody assumed he had brothers and no children. He then got up and said, no, it's the opposite. I have children, I have no brothers. You won't have to do Yibum. Now, if he was just trying to get her out of Yibum, he could set up a get. So we say, Mali L'Shakar, why would he lie? And we believe him. But how much do we believe him? Rabbi Nassan says we believe him like a Chazaka. So now we have two opposing Chazakas, because a Chazaka doesn't uproot a Chazaka. We have a Chazaka that he has brothers and no children, but now we have opposite Chazaka that he has children and no brothers. So, or at least children would be the most important point here to avoid Yibum. And now he comes and says, like the original Chazaka, he goes back to that and he says, actually, really, I have brothers and no children. So since the Mali L'Shakar was only like a Chazaka and didn't uproot the original Chazaka, so now when he comes and makes and reclaims like the original Chazaka, we're going to accept that claim, and she will in fact be forbidden. We're going to assume that he has brothers and no children, and she will be forbidden to marry anybody else until she gets Yibum or Chalitza from one of these brothers, which I guess we will have to hope that we find them soon. Okay, we'll hold here and learn the next Mishnah next time. Yirtzeh Hashem.